Michael Podolny. I am the head of our Economic Development Initiative. I also am semi-retired business person. I have my own nonprofit, the Podolny Group International. Just a little bit of brief history. We originally started this when I presented to the board that if we were going to be serious about economic, that we had to. Sorry, I am having trouble with my slides here. There we go. All right, so we presented this in July of 23. We developed prototypes, and we tried a lot of things that didn't work. This is why you haven't heard very much, because I don't like to do presentations where I say, well, we went out here and here and here and it didn't work. But coming into 2025, we've been able to really make some things happen, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So why do we even have a EDI? Okay, why? Well, I think if anybody who gets serious about human trafficking and starts thinking about how do we prevent it? That is the goal of our club, right? It is to prevent, not just to deal with, survivors, etc. Well, economics is a major, major, major factor, right? That goes into this. And so if we're not, all right, and current economic development simply is not working. Now, this isn't my opinion, okay? I have done a lot of research. I constantly go back and I kind of do recheck, stuff that I've done. I try to see what is the latest, studies that have been put out. But there is a large body of, serious academic, government, private research that has said that the current method with which we are providing aid really doesn't work. All right,
That's true.
it doesn't aid things structurally. It gets sucked up by elites. All right, sometimes even some of the things are not thought through. One of the classic ones was I can't remember the shoe company that was giving away free shoes, right, for everyone that they sold in like a developed country, and they basically wiped out local shoe manufacturers. All right, and the numbers show this. Unemployment is not decreased. All right. By the way, most of what I'm tell you relates to Africa. That's where I work. That's where I spend all my time. All right. So I know we have a lot of people visiting from Southeast Asia. We have people in Latin America. I will defer to your understandings of what's happening. My feeling is that it's very similar. All right. Certainly in Africa, all right, unemployment has not decreased. It has gone up. All right. And anyway, you can read the rest of the slides. All right. And what's really, really sort of, I'm going to call it, I don't know, insidious, is even where we have success with aid, it perversely actually makes things worse. All right. And I'm going to give you some examples. So if we go out and I can't tell you the number of programs that are supported. There was one that crossed our desk here at our club just a couple of years ago, where they're going to put in over $100,000 into training people in the Uganda slums, particularly women, and they were going to train them to be hairdressers and seamstresses. Now, I'm going to tell you flat out, there is no shortage of seamstresses and hairdressers in Kampala. All right? So what they have done is actually created a situation where there's going to be more competitors chasing after a fixed marketplace. All right? And they're going to decrease the earnings of everybody. Here's another example. So our wonderful colleague, Matt Friedman, posted in November on his LinkedIn page a story. It was of a young woman he ran into in Bangkok airport who was returning home to Kenya. This woman had just managed to get out of being enslaved and trafficked. And her story was as follows. Her story was, I went to school, I got a college degree, right? I started looking for jobs. Main thing, could not find a job. I could not find a job. As a result, okay, there was some online posting. She followed it. It turned out to be a scam. She got trafficked. Here was a woman who did everything that the education lobby and that cartel, and that's what I'm going to call it, okay? Because we have this huge body out here who says if we just put money into education, everything's going to be fine. Well, guess what? It's not going to be fine, and it isn't fine. So now what we do is we create more highly educated people, all right, who are going to get trafficked. So all of these are the reasons why we really need to be involved in economic development. Now, I'm going to talk about the things that we're doing, and I will tell you that we are not unique. I have, again, as part of my research, I found a lot of other organizations that are doing similar things within Africa. But what I will tell you is that there's not enough of them. Okay, and I'm sure if we added Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, we looked at parts of Central America, Latin America, we would find the need is so gigantic, right? That we could use 100 times more organizations doing similar things in order to be able to help solve the problem. So some of our principles are that, right, it's not just about one-off, all right? So if somebody, I'm going to use this program in Kampala. So if I go in there and I go to this and I do a bunch of training and the program's over, what's happened? If it's not sustainable, if it isn't a situation where it's going to ongoing, right, it's not going to work. It's also not about just finding jobs. At least in Africa, we talk about the missing middle, that there's large corporations, entities, governments, there's all kinds of people hustling, but there's not a lot in the middle of businesses that are growing and developing and hiring people, et cetera. So it's really important for us to find things that will prosper in the long term and create ongoing jobs. And you have to understand the markets, which means you really got to work with people locally. So, I scoured through the grant application, all right, of this grant to Kampala, looking for where they had done market research to say, well, the seamstresses that we're going to train are going to do these kind of things, so this is not present in the market. Well, I didn't see that. So anybody that's going to work with us, that's something that they have to do, right? They have to look for where are the opportunities and what are they going to be doing that is not currently being done. When we have people like Colin and Mary Lane sitting here, the reason that they're here is because they help people learn best practices. Now, I'm not going to go in a big long conversation of business best practices, but it is the key, all right, for business being successful over the long term. And it is notoriously absent with people who are doing the hustle or people who are just like entrepreneurs without a lot of business training. And also, this is not about throwing lots of money at things. I mean, yes, we do need money, but it's not like, oh, just, if we put a bunch of money that things are going to, make it better. It's really about doing things in a much more thoughtful way. So this is the underlying practice. So then we also really believe that in local and collaborative ownership, this is the Mark Tagliati piece. If we set up an entrepreneur grows a company, a lot of that wealth goes just to that entrepreneur. And we would like to see wealth capital creation go to a lot of people, right? And this really requires a great deal of patience. This does not happen fast, okay? All right, so I'm just going to go through this really quickly. This was what we set up, and we told our club leadership that we were going to need to do in order to be able to be successful, that we needed to recruit the team. That is, Colin, that's Mary, that's myself, that's Mark Tagliati. We needed to find existing programs, okay? We're not going to try to do things from scratch. Then we had to figure out how to train, and help those people in the programs. We then do market opportunities. I mean, you can read these, okay? I'm not going to read the slide for you. So I will tell you that we are really, we're probably, I think we're back at number three. All right. It's taken a long time to get things in a situation where we can have, some success. But let's talk about some of the programs that are actually happening and actually working this very moment. All right. So earlier in the middle of 2025, we started working with Clever Musanda of the Community Conservation and Economic Development, a Zambian NBO. And what they're doing is they're helping a group of tribes that had been forcefully moved from their traditional lands and had been put onto a different property in order for the development of a dam, and they really had no economic basis. And they were walking hours to just get fresh vegetables. So Clever came up with the idea through his NGO, said, what if we set up a farming operation that produces actual, produce, not cash crops that we will sell in our own community. It'll be good for the community. It'll be good for the people. So there are 40 people who they found the capital to find the land. They've set up 40 teams, and they came to us and said, we would really like to include entrepreneur training with this. So Colin started to work with them. We found out they had some issues with connectivity. They came and asked for us for a funding for a Starlink system, which we provided them. And my understanding, last report I got from Clever, was that they were, harvesting. Things were going to market. Like all agricultural ventures, they had a little bit of setback. They actually have 40 people in 4 groups of 10. And if Mark was here, he would talk a lot more about what they're doing on the sort of community, ownership aspect. But one of the groups' land got flooded. So I'm not sure quite how they've been dealing with that. All right, this is probably the biggest project we've got going on at the moment, and we're going to talk a lot about this one in a moment. Karen can talk to you about why we have to couch our wording very carefully on this particular program. But we are providing a district grant, all right, to the Muslim Family Counseling Service in Kumasi and Accra, Ghana. And there we are doing training of virtual executive assistants. And there are 3 of them in this room right now, Henrietta, Judith, and Sandra. I actually had a chance to meet with them. I just got back from Ghana a week ago. And they're still here, so I guess I didn't scare them off. But this is really core to what EDI is all about. And this is not about training, okay? This is about employment. And we're going to talk more about that. But it's really going really well. It has gotten us to develop a strong relationship with the Rotary Club of Accra Spintex, which is also going to be providing some interesting opportunities going forward. We're also working, and this is what Ron Darnell is associated with. So the Jerome Fleischer School in Lusaka, Zambia, services orphans. It's been working for 25 years, and we were through the introduction through Ron Darnell, we learned that they were concerned. I think concerned is probably too soft a term. That they had no idea what was happening to the kids after they got out. Yeah, there were some successes, etc., but there was not like just nonstop, success. So we are in the process of providing the entrepreneurship training and business development that is the core to what EDI is all about to 90 juniors and seniors, 11th, 12th graders in the Jerome Fleischer School. We've just sort of got this going. Colin is in the process of training the trainers. We just approved providing them with a Starlink system because, again, internet connectivity is very poor in most of the regions where we're working, and it's really key in order for us to be able to do the work that we're doing. So those are the current projects that we've got going. Now, I want to talk about I want to talk about transformation a bit. Like why is this important other than like numbers, etc. So, all right, we go back to the slide presentation, but we're going to talk specifically about the power of jobs. All right. So I've got a lot of people here from Theodora. So I've got Anne, Anastasia. Wave to everybody, Anne. They all know you. You didn't get in the meeting without Anne saying yes. We have Mary Mensa, right? Mary, you're still here? Yes. Mary didn't run away while I was gone. That's good. And we have Mary Fiadese, who you all know. Okay. All right. So ladies, I've met, so going back with Mary Mensa and um, 3 years ago is when you started with Theodora, right? Right. Okay.
Yes.
And Mary is a little longer for you, more like around 5 years, right? Okay. And, I'm not, I know you do not like to talk about the past. Okay. That's not a pleasant subject. We're not going to go there. But let's just say if I use the terms, life wasn't really very good then, would that be fairly accurate? Would that be maybe a gross understatement? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when you were presented with this opportunity to get involved with an organization, oh, Faye, you're in the Faye Yolanga wave for everybody. Um, no, Mary, I did not forget Anastasia. I just used the word Anne. So when you guys joined, so particularly Anne and Mary Mensa, how much computer knowledge did you have when you started with us?
I have no knowledge about computers. None.
None.
Nothing. Yeah.
Right. 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 And Mary Fiades, you did a little bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit, little bit, little bit. Okay. So, and Anastasia, since Mary,
Yes. Yes,
Mary
Michael.
Elaine insisted I use your full name. Um, that, Anastasia, you did a presentation for the leadership of the Rotary Club, of Accra Spintex a couple of weeks ago, right?
All right.
Right. So, what were you talking to them about? I mean, you don't have to go into great detail, but just what were some of the things that you were covering with them?
Okay. Thank you, Michael. So I was just showing them the kind of work I'm doing for my client and also explaining to them how much I have been transformed so far and not having that great skills when I started with Theodora. I mean, I never knew how to operate a computer. I never knew what's Control A or Control C or Control V. But today I am happy and proudly say that I can actually work with two systems like doing most of my work, both navigating through two computers. Like I have an other screen and I have my laptop with me. I can actually do like four client work at the same time. This is somebody who doesn't even know anything about computer, doesn't even understand what Theodora Africa or TGVA is all about. But today, I understand the business, I understand the goal, I understand the mission, and I have the skills, and I'm working for top-notch clients that has this high priority of level of project that I'm working on and
Okay,
using
so
so many CRMs. Yeah.
so Anne and Mary Fiadese and Mary Mintz, I want you to chime in on this. Um, so you just used a whole bunch of words, all right, associated with I work with clients, I understand it, I work with, I can work with 5 clients. It doesn't seem particularly what I would expect to get from somebody who was on the street. All right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would you say is kind of like, how did that done for your self-worth? I mean, is it
Mm.
inconsequential? Is it, Mary Fiadese? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes. So I've been doing this for a long time now that I don't even remember where I was anymore. I feel so respected. Now people come into your life and they respect you because you have a decent work going on. You are confident, you know what you are doing, you can talk proudly about the work you do. Unlike before, I had nothing going on and I avoid conversations with people because people will ask you, what do you do? And you don't have anything to talk about. But now my level has changed. So, yes, thanks to Theodora.
Well, and again, we're not plugging just Theodore. We're talking about the power of job creation, of business creation, all right, to
Right.
transform individuals. So Mary Mensa, and this will be the last one, then we'll get back to the presentation. Um, I want you to talk to me a little bit about economics. So we all know, right? We had this conversation that just because you have a good job, it's like you're not like on easy street. I don't know if you know that term, blue card. You're not like you don't have a yacht. You're not just like waiting to get the bank to send you money, right? You're still pretty tough, right, to live. But can you compare where you are economically today to where you were when you started the program?
Um, yeah, before Theodora, things were very difficult. As Mary Fiancee said, you wake up, people receiving money like at the end of the month, and here you are asking yourself, how can you make it in life? Because schooling didn't really help you, no support to further your education. You were left out on the street, and all you always think of is how can I make it in life? How can I support myself for people to respect me? But when I entered the Theodora project, things became more clearer because I was determined to learn. I was determined to focus. I had a vision. And at the end of the day, I don't go out begging people for money because at a point when you call people, they know, oh, Mary is calling me because she needs money. And now I don't do that. I depend on myself. Theodora is helping me earn something at the end of the month. So I know how to budget my life without calling people for money and stuff. I'm able to get a roof over my head. I'm able to take care of my children. So this is how far I've been with Theodora, and I'm really grateful. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mary, and thanks, ladies. I appreciate that because, as I said, the thing that we're talking about, okay, is that it economics, okay, is more than just money. It's more than just filling your belly. All right, Maslow's hierarchy, yeah, that's important. But when we create businesses and we create jobs within businesses that really are sustainable, that focus on the people, the individuals who are in those jobs, that provide support for them, that don't exploit them, we are talking about an incredibly power transformational engine. So now let's get into what are we going to do, okay, and what do we have to go forward, and how, I'm going to touch on something that Karen I know gets really upset about. Like people say, well, what the heck is the club doing? I'm going to show you what the club is doing, all right, and maybe you can talk to maybe the people, probably not the people who are here listening, but maybe to some other people saying like maybe you, instead of complaining about what we're not doing, ought to look to get involved in. All right. First of all, we have one program. The Theodore Africa model, all right, is proven. All right. So it is the one thing we have. Now, it was not an EDI project, but you need to understand that EDI is like a cooperative. So we have people that bring in resources, we have different things that work, and we share and we put those together to kind of create deals and do whatever. So here are some facts about Theodora because it's a replicable model. All right. First of all, it is a change sustainability. Today, it requires no money from any type, even though it's gotten a grant for the training to cover its own operating expenses. It does that, and it is actually showing positive cash flow. All right. So it pays for all the salaries, its overhead, its rent, everything comes out of what it earns. It took about $300,000 to launch that, and it currently earns about $50,000 a year, roughly about a 15% return on. So that's an average return on the original donation. Now, I defy people, maybe defy is too strong a word. I really encourage people to show me other models where they can say, we've put a fixed donation in and we have an ongoing, reoccurring benefit. This is a model that can be replicated. And I'm going to show you the various component pieces because there are specific things that we want to talk about. So, what do you need to do this model? First of all, you have to understand that you have to have a market that must be served. It has to be in a developed country. This is an outsourcing model, okay? So that gives us the opportunity that I can charge a price which is incredibly low in the United States, but translates into something that's very high in a country like Ghana or Zambia or Kenya, all right? And it has to be something that can be done via a virtual outsourced approach. So one, you have to have the market opportunity. Number two, you've got to have a champion, all right? Who is the champion? Champion is the person in the country where the service is going to be delivered, all right? Who understands the market, has credibility, can find what we call the initial angel clients, all right? And can help guide the training that's going to take place. This is critical. You don't just go and set up a bunch of training in Cambodia, all right? Since we have somebody from Cambodia, or in Indonesia, and hope you can find a market in the US. Then we have to decide what population we're going to serve, right? We can't be all things to all people. In Theodora, we service, women who've been, exploited, had to resort to sex work, might have been trafficked, etc., or are vulnerable to being that, okay? And you're going to need somebody in your country, most likely a local, who knows and understands that, because there's going to be all kinds of cultural things that you're going to have to deal with in order to be able to put this together. Then you create an education, a highly focused education model, all right, that says these are the specific things you're going to learn, and you combine that with actual work, all right? The faster you get people actually doing work and interacting with people in the developed country, the faster you start getting transformation of the behavior patterns that are necessary for people to be able to be successful working in that other country virtually. And lastly, then, we look to use the thing that I call social capitalism, where we want to really develop an owner's mentality and facilitate them being the owner. This is not about creating wealth for a small number of people, all right? And we want to make sure these people understand the social impact process. Now, you say, well, how could we do this? I'm going to give you an actual example of something we could do as a club if we really wanted to, all right? So let's go back to the beginning and look at a market opportunity. And I'm going to tell you that I think there's a market opportunity of Rotary clubs, okay, and all of their back office work, okay? Every Rotary club has somebody who is doing all kinds of communication to club members, especially when you get into larger clubs. There's all sorts of meeting management. There is all the aspects of dealing with club runner, all right? And a lot of these in clubs, yes, they have volunteers who can do this, but is that the highest and best use of those volunteers' time? How much would that time be better used in some of the service projects that the club is supposed to do? So I think there's an opportunity there, all right? Particularly since as an organization, Rotary is supposed to be promoting, right, economic development, you know, social impact with disadvantaged populations. So I think that's an opportunity. So let's say I go to Michelle's seats. She's not at the meeting today, so I could talk about her since this is what we call in Theodora being thrown under the bus. So let's say I go to Michelle and I say, Michelle, you know lots of Rotary clubs, right? You know how this whole model works. Why don't you become our champion? Why don't you go in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area and find 3, 4, 5 clubs who would be willing to, right, do this kind of a project? And so she gets to talk to them and can line these people up and would create for us, say, well, Michael, if you're going to do this work, you're going to have to do these specific things. You're going to train all this type of stuff. Great. Well, where can we find a disadvantaged population to be served? What if I went to the Jerome Fleischer School in Lusaka? Jeepers, I have 90 young people there that are looking for some kind of opportunity. Do you think Faye Ulenga and Ron Darnell would be willing to work with me and to be the champion to say, like, yeah, we'll take that training. And oh, by the way, you just funded us a, Starlink system, so we actually have the ability to communicate. We then work with the existing Theodora nonprofit organization, and which would come in and show them how to create the education model, how to do the training, talk about some of the aspects that we'd come through in terms of the problems of meshing let's call it Western individualistic, very performance-oriented culture with a culture that might be very different, and I don't pretend to understand what Zambian culture would be. It's certainly not going to be the same exactly as that in Ghana. And then we would go forward. So could we do this? We absolutely could do this. And there probably are other opportunities. Now, I will tell you the pluses and the minuses of if this is something the club wants to go and try to promote more of. Through EDI. It's expensive. This is not a low-cost project. As I said, it cost $300,000 to launch Theodora to begin with. I think it will take less to do the next iteration, but it's probably going to take at least a couple of $100,000. And it doesn't happen really quickly. It takes time to build up. The advantage is it does become self-funding. It becomes sustainable. All right. Now, the other thing that we want to do is we want to do more tests of the model that we're doing with Jerome Fleischer School. All right. So this is one thing that we're talking about with our partners in Rotary Club Aqua Spintex. We have learned that we need to stick with schools because we need people who are being paid to teach. We tried a number of iterations where we were going like to other Rotary clubs and people just didn't have the time to stick with the program and become the mentors that are needed. And we do need some kind, this is a much, much lower cost program, all right? But we are going to need funds to support connectivity and for seed capital. Also, as we scale this up, I have volunteers like Colin and Mary and like I said, Mark, and at some point, the model will have to start providing some sort of reimbursement for them. We can't grow this as a true scalable venture, strictly doing this with volunteer help. It just won't work. All right? So, people want to know how they can help EDI? First of all, we are not a committee. Don't come and ask me to be on my committee. I don't have one. All right? I don't believe in committees. We have people who contribute skills and who will commit. This is Mary, this is Colin, who will go in and say, I'm willing to work with people, I'm willing to do actual work. And we do get together and we brainstorm and we talk about things and we changed our mission statement, whatever. And if you're going to be a person who's going to contribute skills, we prefer to have somebody who's done work in the marketplaces where they're interested. So maybe there's somebody who's done a bunch of economic development in Southeast Asia and we want to do something in Southeast Asia. So that would be somebody that could really help. And we need money. And this gets into Karen and Mary Fiodese and fundraising, it's like, you want to know what we're raising money for? This is what we're raising money for. You want to tell people what's different, why this Rotary Club is different? Is we're supporting people starting their own businesses, become self-sufficient, transforming, like, Mary Mensah, Anastasia, all right? So jump into the fundraising part of what we do. Then another thing is that we really want to find organizations that have similar values and are doing similar types of projects. And we're just looking to build a community because we don't know it all. I was sat in on a presentation of a group in Uganda called Era 92. That was, older than we are, more well developed. Very, very interesting program. I'm definitely going to reach out to them. It's not one person doesn't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. We want to make sure that we're making this whole concept grow more and more. Okay.